What's up, world? It's your boy Jaron Ikner back again with another video for Starstruck TV. This time we're talking about the new album from Kid Cudi, Man on the Moon 3, which he surprise announced last week with an amazing album cover done by Sam Spratt. This is the end of the trilogy from the Man on the Moon series, which is about 12 years in the making. Very, very excited for this album. For those of you who know me personally, I have a love-hate relationship with Kid Cudi, mostly because of the fact that a lot of people compare my music to him. People say I sound like Kid Cudi. Kid Cudi sound like me, etc. and so forth. So when it comes to this particular album, I'm really looking forward to hearing, or I was looking forward to hearing what he had to offer and what he was going to bring to the table. And in his Zane Lowe interview, he talked about how Travis Scott really pushed him to do a lot more rapping on this album, etc. and so forth. And I'm going to get to the Travis Scott influence a little bit later. But before I do that, I do want to talk about Man on the Moon in general, what these albums kind of mean for the hip-hop community. The first Man on the Moon album is really one of the best albums of all time. This is all genres. Like, if you were to make a top 100 list of greatest albums of all time, Man on the Moon would be in that list. Day and Night, fantastic song. One of the most important songs of this generation. Launched a whole generation of rappers and artists, including myself, who were inspired by the sound and the emotional content that Kid Cudi brought to the table. Man on the Moon, the first one, is it's a cornerstone in the history of hip hop. Can't really argue that. If you do, you might be kind of dumb. With that said, the sequel, Man on the Moon 2, not so much of an impact. Still a decent album, but didn't really live up to the hype that was Man on the Moon, which honestly, I don't think he ever will top that album. Going into this album, I had that expectation, knowing that he was never going to top Man on the Moon 1. And honestly, I still feel this way after listening to this album, even though this album really is a very strong effort. I do feel like it's not as progressive and sonically innovative as it could be. The first half of the album, just straight up honest, it sounds like a Travis Scott album. And I know what you guys are going to say. Well, Travis Scott was inspired by Kid Cudi, so really this is a Kid Cudi album. But what I'm saying is that Kid Cudi, at least with his last album with Passions and Demon Slaying, that album was extremely experimental in terms of sound. Same with Speeding Bullet to Heaven and Indica. All these albums that aren't Man on the Moon albums are extremely experimental. And these are this is the music I really love from Kid Cudi. Is experimental, outside the box, vast soundscapes. That's the Kid Cudi that I really mess with. That's like the Kid Cudi that I absolutely love. And his first album really is just like that, back to back to back to back to back. Like, every song on there is this vast, beautiful, interesting landscape and soundscape that Kid Cudi just kind of like blends himself into. Now with this album, the first, let's see, 8 songs on here straight up sound like the sound that Travis Scott has right now. Now, what's interesting about this is that Travis Scott, as far as I know, has nothing to do with this album. He's not a producer on it. He's not an exec on it. He has no oversight of this album whatsoever. But what's interesting is that the new ad-libs that Kid Cudi has on there are clearly Travis Scott influenced, with the echo straight ups and yes and all that stuff. Sounds very, very like Travis Scott. The production is very like Astro World-ish type of production in the sound that Travis Scott has cultivated over the last couple of years. Definitely sounds that way. And even his flow and his rhyme patterns sound like Travis Scott. Now, once again, I understand that Travis Scott is 100% influenced by Kid Cudi, so basically what I'm saying is that Travis Scott sounds like Kid Cudi, so Kid Cudi sounds like himself. But the issue with this is that I am not hearing the progression, at least on this first half of the album. I was not hearing the progression. And like, even though the songs were great and he's saying some dope stuff and he does what Kid Cudi does, he's not really bringing something to the table that was like blowing my mind. My mind was not blown until we got to the second half, which he once again splits this album up into 4 different chapters, just like he did on his previous Man on the Moons. On this one, he called the chapters Return to Madness is Act 1, The Rager and the Menace is Act 2, Act 3 is Heart of Rose Gold, and Act 4 is Powers. Act 3. Act 3 is absolutely incredible. It actually starts, technically speaking, at track 9 with Solo Dolo Part 3, which is the first time on this album you really get that innovative, progressive Kid Cudi sound that I was really just hoping to hear. Solo Dolo Part 3, fantastic song. But then you get into the third act of this album, which features mostly songs, or at least 2 of the songs are produced by Kid Cudi, which are really the only tracks that he has produced on this album. But these are some of the best, most progressive tracks that we have on the album, including The Void and Elsie's Baby Boy. Great songs. These are the songs that I really, really wanted from this man in terms of just making stuff that goes outside of the realm of what we expect from him. Elsie's Baby Boy is a good example. The beat is very innovative. It's something that fits in the soundscape of Cudi, but like on the outside of it. And that's really what I want from this dude. Loving Me, featuring Phoebe Bridgers, incredible song. Just one of those songs that really, really resonate with me. Extremely relatable. Full of emotion, full of energy. Not to say this whole album's not, but this particular song really sums up what it means to be Kid Cudi, basically. It's like the most Kid Cudi song that you can get is Loving Me. And then it goes into the next act, Pale Moonlight. Fantastic song. In fact, the album ends strong, especially with the song featuring Trippie Redd. And when I saw the feature, I was like, oh man, he's gonna go back to the sound of the first half of the album. But actually, like, Trippie Redd blends in very well with the sound that they crafted on this stuff. Dr. Genius does most of the production on here, which is kind of like a surprise to me in the sense that I really was hoping to hear some more Email. But he only produces the first track. And I don't even really think that he produces the first track. More so, they just sample some of the old stuff from previous albums. Also, what's interesting about this first track, which is only 37 seconds long, is that it also features Phineas from Billie Eilish. And that's the only appearance he makes on this album. What? It's like, I would love to hear more music with Phineas, who's probably one of my favorite producers out right now, and Kid Cudi on like full songs. It took 4 people to make that intro. It's like, oh man, like when you hear the intro to the album, like you get this feeling like, oh, this is gonna be great. But then, like I said, Tequila Shots, Another Day, As She Knows, Dive, not bad songs. Like, I'm not mad at these songs. I'm not like, oh, these songs are terrible. But it just, when you go listen to the first Man on the Moon, and a lot of this has to do, that this is something that, like, this is kind of a tangent. So most artists' first albums are usually their best album. A lot of this has to do with the fact that they spent years thinking about this album, like sequencing, etc., so forth, blah blah blah. This album, Kid Cudi, I think he said he put together very quickly, and it almost kind of sounds like it, where these first few songs on this album sound like they were made recently, and that they were made with the sole purpose of like making an album instead of just kind of telling a story. When you get into Rager and things start to get a little bit more diverse, like, I don't think we should have even had the song with Pop Smoke and Skepta on here. I'm not even trying to hate on that whole movement, UK rappers and all that, but it just doesn't fit a Man on the Moon album. Like, if you call this album Man on the Moon, then I'm expecting a certain caliber of storytelling, quality, and presentation. And a few of these songs just don't hit the mark. Not to say that the songs are bad. Show Out with Pop Smoke and Skepta is fine. It's a fine song. But it's not the song that I would want to hear on a Man on the Moon album. So, yeah. But when you get into the later versions of the later half of the album, they really do dial that in. They find that tone. They find that balance and that sound that I really, 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 really wanted for this album. And I'm glad that we were able to get a few songs out of this that that satiates my desire for that. But all in all, I'm not mad at this album. I just think that I almost wish that it wasn't called Man on the Moon 3, because of the fact that it I don't know, it just doesn't quite hit the mark for what I expect when I hear Kid Cudi doing Man on the Moon 3. But with that said, I'm very happy with this album overall. It's going to be a really crazy year for Kid Cudi. He has a lot coming out next year, including, he just dropped this album, obviously, but then also he has this show on Netflix called Intergalactic. I think he just relaunched his record label and has a development deal now. He has a lot going on. So we're going to be seeing a lot of Kid Cudi. He also has a show on HBO, I think, too. So I'm hoping that with his Intergalactic album, which is supposed to be like a TV and movie show kind of synergy type of multimedia adventure, I really hope that we continue to hear that innovation, because that's really what I really want the most from Kid Cudi, is his ability to innovate. I love Passion and Demon Slaying because of the fact that the sounds on there are just so progressive, and Kid Cudi really tried to do this like something that was just out of the box. And he pioneered a whole generation of artists, including Trippie Redd, including Travis Scott. And I think that if you're going to call your album Man on the Moon 3, then you're expecting to create a path for the next generation, right? The next people who are coming up behind them with something new and something fresh and innovative. But I will definitely give this album a deeper listen, but on first listen, I'm not mad. I just kind of wish that there was more to it in terms of pushing the threshold. And that's it. But strong album. Give it a listen. Let me know what you guys think. Like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. Tell me in the comments how wrong I am or how right I am. Yeah. Also, I'm working on a movie called The Bond. Go check out thebondmovie.com. Directing, writing, and shooting it myself with a whole team. It's crazy. We got fighting. It's tight. And yes, that was a shameless plug. But love y'all. Thanks for watching. Be safe. What?